Hi everyone, this is FIDE Master Charles Galofre for chess.com, and I'd like to welcome you again to another video lecture. For today's video lecture, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off and just share something with you that's been in the top of my head for the past couple of days. And, this portion of the video has absolutely nothing with what I'm going to teach you today. But I'm going to go ahead and share this with you just to kind of motivate some of you that might be starting off in chess and are a little discouraged by, how much, how challenging sometimes chess could be. I was remembering the other day what I used to believe the Queen's Gambit was. And I'm going to go ahead and show that to you, as embarrassing as it might be. I used to think that the Queen's Gambit was actually the 3-move checkmate. So let me go ahead and show what I believe what the Queen's Gambit was. After white plays e4 and black plays e5, I used to think that the Queen's Gambit was queen to h5. And I was really excited about this when I thought that this was the Queen's Gambit, because I was winning a lot of games on the internet by just let's say black would play knight to c6 defending the pawn, and I'd play bishop to c4, and after that my opponent would play knight to f6 attacking my queen, and I'll play queen takes f7 checkmate. And I was just really happy when I had learned the Queen's Gambit. But as we know, this is not the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit is actually when white plays d4, black plays d5, and white plays c4, right? So maybe some of you could gain some inspiration out of that. And yeah, so hopefully that helps some of you. Okay, so what I wanted to share with everybody today is a game that I remember going over a very long time ago. I mean, I'd say maybe, let's see, I am 24 right now. At least 10 years ago, or maybe 8 years ago. And when I reviewed this game, what was being glamorized or praised about it was how black played defensively on the queen side. The reason why I want to share the game today is because when I was going over the game yesterday, I was able to pinpoint the key mistake in White's play, and I think that a lot of players would miss the key mistake in White's play so early on in the game, and it just shows how much better of a player I am today than what I used to be. So the player with the white pieces is Petrosian, and the player with the black pieces is Spassky. This is their 7th game from the World Championship match, and Petrosian was the victor in that World Championship, and I believe the championship took place in 1966 or in 1967. So Petrosian played 1d4 here. Spassky played 1d4. And Petrosian played knight f6. He's black. Spassky plays knight to f3, e6, and now bishop to g5. And this is a very curious moment in this game, because actually Petrosian is known to be a specialist in this variation in the Ettori attack with the white pieces. And so Spassky is now playing an opening that his opponent plays in a World Championship match, and it could be looked at as risky business, but I think that in such a tense moment, it might be an interesting psychological ploy. So here Petrosian played d5, very classical. White plays knight to d2. The idea is to play e4 in one move. And so Petrosian prevents that with bishop to e7. Now white plays e3, very sensible development. Knight b to d7, developing a piece instead of castling the king. Notice that an automatic move like castling, sometimes it's better to keep your options open. It's not necessarily important, and that's a key lesson in development. A lot of times it's not about developing a piece or just developing, but developing optimally. White plays bishop to d3, c5, c3, and b6. Black's idea is to play bishop to b7. White castles. Black plays bishop to b7. And now it's white's turns to make a move. And this is a very important moment for white because he has to decide how he's going to continue. All his minor pieces are developed, and it's pretty much now when he chooses how the game is going to proceed. So the game that white played, the move that white played was knight to e5, and that seems like a very natural move, a very ambitious move. The idea is to play f4, gaining complete control of the e5 square, and later on to play towards the king side. Maybe play queen to f3, queen to h3, and attack the king, assuming he castled short. Another idea after white plays f4, strengthening the e5 square, is to play rook to f3 and rook to h3, also using the rook, the bishop, and the excellent placement of the pieces on the king side to attack the king, assuming once again he castles king side. So people that have analyzed the game have suggested that a4 would have been an interesting move here in this position. Sorry, before knight to e5, that a4 would have been an alternative way of playing this position. I think that the next moves that white would have made would have been queen to b1, followed by rook to c1, and b4. Notice that the queen from b1 actually indirectly controls the e4 square and also influences on the queen side. So it's a very interesting way of proceeding in the game. Now, let's see how Spassky played. Spassky played knight to e5. And now black has to make a decision here. The move that Petrosian played was knight takes c5. And this seems objectively like a good move because it simplifies. You're black and you're trying to get rid of exchanging pieces is something that's always good for black in the opening. White plays pawn takes knight. And now black plays knight to d7, attacking the pawn on e5. Now in this position, Spassky played bishop to f4, defending the pawn. Analysts say that an alternative continuation could have been bishop takes c7, and after queen takes to simply defend the pawn with f4, and that this position would be equal, or that both sides have equal chances. For instance, after black castles, white could just play e4, and that this position would prove to be equal for both sides. Now, this is basically the point that impressed me from the game, and that's that in this position, Spassky takes time off to defend the e5 pawn with the bishop. And that move, just one move, is what caused, is what basically, I believe, caused him to lose the game. Because now this e5 pawn is a weakness, and all of black's play revolves around that pawn. If you were black, what would you play here? And I think that after what I just explained, it might be pretty easy for you to figure out how to play here. So you have the black pieces. It's 1966. Retigan Petrosian versus Boris Spassky. How would you continue? The move Petrosian played was queen to c7, once again targeting the e5 pawn. So now white plays very naturally, knight to f3. And I think that this would be another interesting position for you to consider. How would you play here as black? Let's go ahead and change the view. This is definitely a very challenging question, and it might take you at least 9 minutes to consider the move. Because it's not a natural move. A natural move here would be castling. Okay, so if you paused or if you pause, I will go ahead and continue. The move that black played here was h6. It looks like a very innocent move, but actually it hides an incredibly aggressive plan. That's to play g5 and g4 and cause a disharmony in these pieces. He's going to make them move, and eventually he's going to capture the e5 pawn. So now Spassky is once again defending. He's playing a prophylactic move with bishop to g3. Petrosian plays g5 now, continuing with his plan. His idea is to play h5 and h4 to trap the bishop. Now Spassky has only one move to not fall in a losing position, and that's b4. When you see that you have statically a inferior position, you are basically forced to create chaos or dynamic opportunities in the board. That's just a basic rule of strategy. You know, statically, let's say you have a bad pawn structure, you have to create complications because eventually you're going to be grinded down to a loss. Which is why sometimes people say if you're down a pawn, you could be down 2 or 3 pawns. Because you're eventually going to lose, so you might as well do something extra to try to gain compensation. Now this b4 move, the idea is that, okay, we're sacrificing a pawn. If white captures, white plays knight to d4, and now all of a sudden it's white the one that's attacking. Before, black had a very nice shield here with the pawn structure, but now these pawn pushes, g5, h6, the king is in the center of the board. We just finished opening an open file for the rook. The e6 pawn seems to be also kind of weak. White might be threatening queen to h5 followed by h4. I know I'm doing a lot of arrows, and I'm sorry if that is a little obnoxious, but this is just to show that in this position white now has compensation. Actually not compensation, he's gained the initiative, and black is going to be defending for a very long time. So we'll go back. Of course, black realizes that he has a superior position, and he doesn't open the position for his opponent. He simply continues with his plan, which is to play h5. And this is looking really risky for white in this situation. White is forced to play h4. Black captures, and now he plays bishop to f4. Now black castles queenside. And here we see part of the advantages of black not having castled earlier. because now he has the option of castling queenside. And we're gonna, it's almost like a picture, like a painting. We're gonna place the rook on g8, the rook on g4, double rooks, and all of our pieces are aesthetically appealing. When your pieces are so harmoniously placed that they look like a picture, that means that you have a very good position. Okay, here white played a4. This is considered to be a mistake. I'll explain why. People that have analyzed this position say that pawn takes c5 would have been a better move. Now pawn takes would be a mistake because white has an open b file, and for a player like Spassky, this is definitely going to be enough to create enough counter chances. He'll play queen to a4, rook to b1, and we have threats of playing rook takes b7 followed by bishop to a6. A c4 pawn move would concede the d4 square. So after pawn takes, black could consider something like knight takes c5, which would seem natural. Okay, so the reason why a4 is a mistake here is because now we see that glamorized or that praised plan that I had talked about earlier. And that's that after c4, Petrosian attacks the bishop, but he also blocks the queenside. His very next move is brilliant. Let's say you're black here. How would you play? You see that your opponent is attacking you on the queenside. How would you defend? This is an incredible concept. After this game, I think you'll have a hard time forgetting it. The move that Petrosian played here was a6. How about that? First he played h6, and he gained the advantage on the king side. And now he plays a6, and he gains the advantage on the queen side. What's so brilliant about a6? What's brilliant about a6 is that now there is absolutely no move that white could do on the queen side to open lines to black's king. If white plays a5, black plays b5. The lines are closed, the center is closed, the king side is open, and therefore who do you think has the advantage there? If white plays b5, black will play a5. Okay, so after a6, white played king to h1. He knows black's plan, which is to bring the pieces to this side of the board. Petrosian plays the expected. Rook to g1, rook to g4. Now Spassky plays queen d2, connecting his rooks. Rook to g8. Now Spassky plays a5. Petrosian follows up with b5. Now that the queen side is locked, Spassky plays rook to d1. The rook has no purpose on a1 anymore. And now Petrosian plays a very nice move here, bishop f8. The idea is to continue with bishop g7 and bishop h8 and pressure the e5 pawn. So now white plays knight to h2, attacking the rook on g4. Unfortunately, that move, even though it makes you think that white is going to gain back the pawn with rook to g7 after bishop takes h5, and all of a sudden it looks like white has defended, because later on we could play bishop to f3, and it looks like white is pretty solid there. So that's something that I hadn't considered earlier. Now that I'm going over this game again, I realize, and it's actually instructive for you guys to appreciate. Here you have a position where all of your pieces seem to be perfectly placed. You have, what I'm trying to say is that in a position like this, giving away the exchange shouldn't be hard to do, or to come to that decision. Petrosian played here, knight takes c5. White captured the rook. Black captures back. And white played e4. It's a tactic, it's a freeing tactic, and it's something that, it's a resource that that gives a little bit more life to white's position. But black hasn't lost his advantage. He simply plays bishop to d6. Notice that if black captures, then white will play bishop takes c5, and after queen takes bishop, queen to d8 is checkmate. But as I've said before, the world champion has been checkmated one too many times to be checkmated in the world championship. So he plays bishop to d6, defending the knight. White plays queen to e3. And now black just plays knight to d7. He's going to exchange the bishop on f4, which is really the only active piece in white's position. Every other piece is defensively placed. Bishop takes, queen takes, and here white makes one of the final mistakes. He plays rook to d4. A better move in this situation would have been the defensive move f4, because now white recreates what black did on the queen side. If at one point black were to push one of these pawns, white will simply block the king side. And now there are more defensive possibilities in this position. Okay, it's very easy. It's easy to understand how Spassky can miss a move like f4, because black has been just better from very early on in the game. So Spassky played rook to d4. The idea is to simply double rooks on the d file. But now Petrosian plays e5, attacking the rook. And after that, he plays f5, an incredibly brilliant move, sacrificing a pawn to just steamroll white down the center of the board. Spassky captures. Petrosian pushes. Queen f5, knight f6, attacking the queen. Queen f5 check, one of the only moves. King to b8. If queen to e6, we just capture. And we could play h3 here, or even knight to e4. And the game will be over very soon. After king to b8, white played f3. The game is going to finish in the next 5 to 6 move. Bishop c8, attacking the queen. Queen to b1, g3. Rook to e1, h3. Bishop f1, rook to h8. Pawn takes, bishop takes h3. All the pieces came crashing through on the king side. King to g1, bishop takes f1. King takes, and now the last brilliant move in the game, e4. The idea is to bring this pawn closer to the king to be able to checkmate him. Queen to d1. The last piece comes into the attack. Knight to g4. Pawn takes. f3, threatening checkmate. white plays rook to g2, and after pawn takes g2, Spassky decided to resign. I would have to say that this game is incredibly instructive. If you have the opportunity of finding a PGN, I would recommend you printing it and going over it. The game, you're definitely going to see this game again in chess literature, because I'm obviously not the only one that finds it very instructive. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed the lecture. I'll speak to you next time. Bye-bye.